Hey everybody, welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
Hi, I'm Joey Evans.
And I'm Wendy Yee.
Today we're taking a look at Archeos Society. This is a new game from Space Cowboys, designed by Paolo Mori. Of course, it's a new game, relatively loosely.
Yeah.
This is based on Ethnos. This is essentially a reworking.
What?
Yeah, I know.
It makes a lot more sense now.
It does.
Cover that up, hide it a little bit, hide its shame. So Archeos Society game for 2 to 6 players. Some interesting card play. We're going to show you how it plays, and then we'll give you our thoughts on it.
The game comes with 12 different roles, and at the beginning of the game, you're going to pick 6 of these roles, and you're going to be shuffling them together into one large deck. Some of the roles might have some secondary setup, depending on the special rules for that role. You're also going to be playing with 6 boards here. Now, the 6 boards, these are the basic sides of each board, although every board has a special side, and you can flip and play with the special rules for that side. Now, the game does come with various combinations. They'll tell you, pick a combination here. It will tell you what roles to pick, and it will tell you which of the things you can turn over. But you can do whatever you want, so there are many, many, many combinations. Now, after you make this deck of cards, you're going to be playing through 3 different seasons in this game. You're going to put out a line of cards here, and that line is going to depend on the number of players in the game. You're going to deal everybody 1 card from the deck, and then you're going to shuffle these 3 monkey idols into the bottom half of the deck. And then you start the season. So on your turn, you will either take a card or you'll play an expedition. When you take a card, you take one of the cards that's face up from the display and add it to your hand, or you can draw the top card of the deck. If you get a monkey card, you have to reveal it and draw another card, and when the 3rd monkey card is drawn, the round is going to end. The other thing you do is you can play an expedition card from your hand. When you play an expedition from your hand, you are trying to play a bunch of the same color or a bunch of the same person, the same trait here. So I could play, for example, these 2 in front of me here. And if I did this, this would be a pink expedition. It could also be a green expedition. Or I could play some of the same color, in which case it would obviously be a green expedition. When you play these cards, you'll play them in front of you. The rest of your hand is going to be put out here in a display for people to take. You have a hand limit of 10, but if you're not careful, if you wait too long to play cards from your hand, you're going to be putting a bunch of cards out for everybody else to choose from. When you play the expedition in front of you, you're going to look at the leader of that expedition. Now, you're going to see what color they are. So if it's all the same color, then that's obviously what leader that expedition is going to be. But if you play people of the same type, if I play these together, the leader's pink. The leader will give you a special ability, and then you also will move on that track. So let's say I played the pink track up here. I need 3 cards, a 3-person expedition, to move my token 1 space forward on that track. Then I need 3 again, then 4, and so on. You'll see there's various amounts of points these will score at the end of each season, depending on where you are on the tracks. Some tracks are easier to move on, some are more difficult, and some are longer tracks, some are shorter tracks, but they all need at least a group of the number of cards for you to move. You can still play a group and simply not move, and you're trying to get points with that group, or maybe use the special abilities. Here are all the different special abilities. So for example, the cartographer, if you move your vehicle, you can play an extra expedition from your hand before you put all your cards back in. They let you play 2 expeditions. Mercenaries, they can't be leaders, but they can fill up any expedition here. The photographer, they act as if their expedition, the group of cards, has 1 extra card in it. And so there's all different types that you can play. As I said, when the 3rd monkey idol is drawn, then the round will instantly end. Everyone discards their cards. You're going to get rid of all the expeditions and start over. Players are going to score for the size of each of their expeditions. So you can see a 6+ expedition will get you 12 points, while an expedition of 2 gets you 1, an expedition of 1 gets you nothing. And you'll move them on this pretty terrible scoring track. You're also going to get points depending on where your vehicles are on each of the track. And these vehicles are not reset at the end of a season, so you're trying to get as far as you can to get the biggest amounts of points. And then you start another season. After 3 seasons, whoever has the most points is the winner. All
right, so one of the first things that I noticed about this reprint of this reworking is I think it looks really gorgeous. I don't know about you. I love the striking cover. I think that's set up on the table. It looks pretty good for the most part. What do you think of the production, the looks of it overall?
I think the iconography is a bit confusing. I wish that they had gotten something a little bit more clear there, or if they included some text with the iconography. But overall, like I think the artwork's fine. It doesn't really like speak to me. It doesn't stand out.
I think the artwork looks good. I think they could have chosen different colors, like rather than let's do purple and a lighter purple. Or it's like some of the colors are like a little bit too.
You want more of a magenta?
Yeah, I mean, like from a distance, because you look at the board, you look at the cards, and it's a disconnect. I think
Not using puce as a color was like a huge miss.
Totally agree. That's written down my notes.
I definitely agree about the colors, and I agree that the look. It's this odd kind of juxtaposition. When you see it on the table, I think it looks nice to me, but I think there's some usability issues, mostly with the colors and secondarily with the score track. I really don't like the
Oh my
makeup
goodness,
of that score
yes.
track.
Oh, that's
It's needlessly complicated. Just make a score track,
it's
right? You
not
know?
even a spiral. It decides to go
Yeah.
like this, and then it goes up your wall, down
And there's
around,
nothing
under the
thematic
table.
about it either. What's the point?
No.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I think the quality of the cards are nice.
Yeah.
The tracks are good, but there's some usability things that could have easily been rectified.
I agree.
I agree with that. The score track is egregious, and I'm going to hammer on this for just another minute here, because yesterday when we were playing
Cheated. You cheated.
yes, I
cheated.
He
did.
inadvertently cheated.
It inadvertently.
but here's
He
cheated.
inadvertently cheated about 4 times in a row.
But notice he never cheats the opposite direction. Did you notice that?
I did though, is the problem, because I sat there and I was like, okay, because when it snakes back and forth amongst the stuff, you're sitting there trying to move it forward, and you're like,
What number comes next?
literally which
What
direction
line am
am
I
I
on?
going? And then you score another color piece, and it's
Yeah.
going the opposite direction. This is forward, and this is forward, and that doesn't make sense in my brain.
Right.
Yeah, but those those are clearly issues. But
Right.
the gameplay is what it's really about.
I would agree with that.
I love tracks. So I was excited about tracks. And I have to say that tracks didn't impress me as much as I thought tracks were going to impress me. I feel like they, given I didn't play a lot with the advanced sides, I played mostly with the basic stuff with just a couple advanced sides. And so maybe I would feel differently. But I feel like a lot of the tracks felt the same. It was like,
Okay.
oh, I move up on blue. Okay, I get 1 point. I move up on orange. I get 1 point. I move up on green and I lose a point, or whatever color it is.
My big
Yeah.
thing was, with tracks, as opposed to another game which we have not mentioned.
We will make the ethnos comparisons
Well, yeah,
here.
it's like when you're looking at over there at the other track, because I was like really flying up on like red, I think it was. And I'm like, I'm doing great. But at this point, I couldn't see the amount of points I was going to get at the end. I only knew at the end I got like 7 points. And I'm like, that really wasn't worth my entire 3 rounds of getting there. So that's a little bit different. And so I don't know if the tracks on their base side are as exciting. That's the biggest key.
That's
for
the
me.
thing, because I do think that those advanced tracks are much more interesting.
So much more.
And I think when you have a good number of those advanced tracks in the mix, then, in my opinion, it makes it more compelling than, let's say, if they went with like an area control mechanism in this one.
What?
Say, for
Who would
example.
have thought?
That's for me. But yeah, I agree that the base ones are just variations on the same theme. But with
Yeah.
with the advanced tracks, I think they change it up enough that it makes it compelling.
Even the basic tracks are different amongst each other. The green one requires 3 cards minimum to move up
Right.
that first step. They're minor differences, but having played through all of the advanced sides, sometimes using multiple in a game,
Yeah.
I do find that interesting. I find that that's nice design space to be able to work in. Expandable.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really hope to see in this would be
That would
expansion.
be nice.
Right.
That would be very
Right.
nice, yes.
It's almost impossible to review this game without making all the direct comparisons to Ethnos. So
Right.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to highlight a few more of the things that I really love about this game in general.
Okay.
The card drawing is, I think, phenomenal. You have a hand limit of 10 cards, and so you're always kind of feeling that pressure when you're holding more cards, drawing more from the top of the deck in hopes that you can make a bigger set. Because I love the set scoring. I love the scoring for moving up tracks. That juxtaposition of, should I play lots of small sets of cards to
Right.
advance on tracks, or should I just kind of try to get a huge hand, and playing out 5-6 cards of a kind is like 12 points.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
no joke in and of itself.
Right. No, I agree. Now that we are looking more at this versus Ethnos, on initial plays, Ethnos, it's going to have that problem where people are so ingrained in Ethnos as a game. And you're going to play it, and it's like a remake of it. It's not a remake. It does a lot of things differently. But anytime you're going to be like, no, I like the original better. And I was like that at first. More plays of this, I appreciated what this had. I still miss some things that Ethnos has. I feel like this pushes more into the Euro area because it removes some of that player interaction through area control and things that Ethnos is known for. And I think it fits really well into Ethnos' the whole sphere there with have all the fantasy thing and your battling and all that. So maybe this makes more sense in this whole genre. And also, I think once you flip it to the advanced side, I think this has a lot more to offer. I think I prefer Ethnos because I like that player interaction because you are laying down your tableaus and you're going through your sets and things like that. But I think the player interaction is what makes Ethnos unique.
I
So I do
think
miss that.
that Indiana Jones has taught me that Archeos Society should be much more combative.
This is true. This is true.
Where are the rocks for me to run away from? That's what I want to know.
I guess that's a good point. And we are kind of doing this comparison now.
Let's go full bore into
Yeah.
If
it.
the main hook for you of Ethnos was it's an area control game that uses some neat card play to drive it, then you're probably going to prefer Ethnos.
Right.
If the main hook of Ethnos was the clever card play, then I think you may appreciate Archeos Society if you are more of the Euro end of the spectrum.
Which is funny because I feel like I'm feeling the opposite with this.
Really?
Yeah,
But
so
you don't
I'm,
like Euros.
I'm not usually. I don't like Euros. No, I don't usually love area control, and I do usually love tracks a ton. And I think that the card play in Ethnos is great, and that is one of the things I love most about it. And so this has both. Like they both have that clever card play. So I really enjoy both of them. But there's something about being able to look at the board from the beginning of the game and say, okay, I know what everything's valued at. I know what areas are going to be hot areas. I know what areas are going to be not hot areas. And it's that spreading the points and trying to
Okay.
figure out all that's going on from the get-go.
That clicked a thing for me. You don't like auction games, do you?
I don't like auction games.
Because?
I don't value things
There you
well.
go.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's interesting. So
fascinating.
I think that's just a gamer thing. Or what is like if you like not having I want to say this in a way that it doesn't portray any kind of value judgment because it doesn't. But if you like kind of a little bit more hidden scoring to an extent, this is going to be more your cup of tea, I think. Because you're right, Ethnos,
That
it's
makes
much
sense.
more, I know exactly, or at least pretty good idea, know what things are going to be worth, what things are going to be fought over.
Yeah.
It's not that way in this, necessarily. You kind of have to drive as the game is going, kind of see what are the contested tracks, who's going for the artifacts, those types of things, and be able to kind of maneuver through that.
But there's also not
yeah.
a lot of like hidden
sense.
points in Archeos Society either.
Not hidden, but it's not as obvious what the other players are doing.
Like a point salad. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same because you still have your bands of cards. You still
do.
have, you're collecting different sets of things in Ethnos. So I feel like it has that. I think just the tracks, they feel very, like you look at the board and they feel well balanced. And maybe that's it, is that everything just feels kind of balanced. So it's like I can kind of do anything.
Yeah.
And then it depends on what comes in my hand. Whereas in Ethnos, I feel like I know what's going on and I'm going to make really strategic decisions with my hand instead of, hey, I can kind of do anything with the hand that I have.
Interesting. I don't know that I agree with your theory here. I think
Okay.
that Ethnos having the areas, the territories be valued at the beginning. First round, 2 points. Second round, 4 points. Third round, 10 points. That does portray immediately the values of each
Sure.
territory for the 3 rounds. Archeos Society, I feel like it's even more transparent because you see all the values. If I move up the track this number of steps, I guarantee we'll get that number of points, right, for each step that I move up. And in Ethnos, because it's a combative type of a thing, it's fighting for that, vying for that majority. Someone might really go into an arms race with you in a territory, and you think, oh gosh, now I have to know, is it worth competing with that person, or is it worth trying to maybe get a bunch of second places in other territories?
Yeah.
I feel like it creates more of that excitement, more of that
think
things aren't
Archeos
perfectly.
does?
I think Ethnos
Ethnos
is
does.
more exciting.
Yes. Okay.
And I think that it has less transparency in what score you'll get because other players affect where you're going
Okay.
to go.
I think it's like because I'm in the middle because I see this. I do miss that. The more you talk about it, I do miss that, and also I don't miss that. I don't miss the fact that I'm like I love it when you're winning, but then it's like
You got one
you
more
could have
disc
gone
than
over
me.
there. It doesn't
Right,
make any
right.
sense for you to do that. But that's what kind of makes it a fun interactive game. But then as far as like the points, it is laid out on each track, but it's not as clear cut. Because everything does different things. This one, if you move both your wagons up here, you're going to do it. And this, like, there's so much. It's like, whew, mind-numbing. But a lot more thought goes into each track than goes into who you're going to attack with Ethnos.
I guess maybe part of it for me is that if I'm like, okay, I want to really invest in this pink track because this pink track looks like a lot of fun, and then I just don't really have access to those pink cards, then I can't really have that much fun with pink. But in Ethnos, if I'm like, ooh, I want to go really heavy into this really, like, I want to win the 10-point space, my options are I can spread around and get other stuff. So I just feel like you're able to get higher amounts of points for less, if that makes sense. Whereas every other track, all these tracks start really small point-wise.
I will tell you, this has the same thing with Ethnos. The skeletons, and I think the gunslingers or mercenaries are the red herrings for me. Because every time I'm like, I'm going to lay down this 8 card. And then at the end, everybody's scoring like so many points. I'm like, I only have 2.
Oh, see, that makes more sense.
I do it every time.
That makes more sense.
Brutal.
In when you're trying to get more discs because they'll really let you get that higher disc, that next level. You know what I mean? You'll be able to get more out there. Whereas you won't necessarily, like, I move up again on a track. I don't know.
I think the factions is one of the things that makes this game for me. Being able to have 12 different factions, mix 6 of them in. It's the exact, I mean, it's
Yeah.
in terms of that card play and everything, it's 99% the same as Ethnos. There's one faction they had to change because there's no tiebreakers anymore. And I think that they did a good job transporting all of those elements into this game.
But there's one rule that they put in here
Which is big.
that I will now do in Ethnos. If
The
possible.
drawing the card,
drawing of
the
cards.
drawing 2 cards. If everybody,
Yes.
if there's no cards out in the display.
I like
It
that.
really speeds up and it adds a ridiculous amount of tension to the end of each round.
Mike will yell at you.
Yeah, in the last game that we played, I got hosed twice.
Out
I'm
of
not
3
going to say that
rounds.
the whole game
Hinged
hinged
upon
on the fact that the person playing to my right, who was not in this review, Rod Phelps, chose to forego laying down a run that would have given him points simply to draw 2 cards to get the stupid monkey so I could not play my triumphant run that would allow me to get the 6th, right, and final, or is it 7th?
Did that last artifact?
final
Yeah.
Oh, Mike had like 30 cards. I was going to be laying down. Like,
Yeah, this was going to be the best play ever. I would end up with 470 points.
I would have done the exact same thing, Mike.
So while I do feel like this game with the tracks lacks a little bit of that excitement that comes from the vying for majorities and stuff that you found in the original, that's one of my favorite moments of the game is the tension of drawing from that deck and saying when is that third end of round
yeah.
card going to be
I
drawn.
agree.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
So it's very similar. Let's
Yeah.
go into final thoughts and scoring. I don't know how to do this.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is how I've thought about it because I've spent some time thinking, what if Archeos Society came out and Ethnos wasn't a thing?
Because for a lot of
Because-
people who have never played
Right.
Ethnos,
Yes.
they don't. Yeah, that's going to be more
They don't
useful.
want that. So for me, this is a 7.5. I don't think it's going to make waves, but I think it is a solid, good game that I would highly recommend to people. But if it were to come out today without any sort of history, I think that it would not have the heart and the soul and the staying power that Ethnos has. And so for me, Ethnos is a 9. Like, I really enjoy it. I think it's great. It's fabulous big groups, you know what I mean, all of that. And I think a lot of that translates into Archeos Society. So for me, 7.5, it's still a very good game. It's still very well made. Yeah, I still like it. But when I compare, it's like, I'll always pick Ethnos.
Interesting. Okay.
I was around a 7, 7.5 till I played it more and I flipped those advanced sides. I'm at an 8. So I do enjoy this as the game. I think it's really good. A lot of people will gravitate to this. For me, Ethnos is also a 9. Ethnos is better than this because you talk about the play interaction, like laying the cards. for me, that comes with, why are you in my area? Why are you know what? Now I'm going after you. And then the other guy that's quiet across the table is like slowly taking these 3 regions while you guys are battling out. I love that player interaction, those stories that are built around Ethnos. And here, it's a different type of story, but I think it does a good job in doing it as well, which is why I give it 8. And I think they fixed some things with Ethnos that were problems, like the 2-card draw, and they did little tweaks to some of the factions that don't make a huge difference, but they kind of feel a bit smoother.
The giants, the botanists are a little simpler. And everything,
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, it's an 8 from me. I do enjoy the game a lot, and if you have never played Ethnos, then this is probably a better jumping in point because it looks a lot more attractive on the table, let's be honest.
It does, I think. And for me, it's also an 8. I guess my thing is that I would also rate Ethnos an 8. The reason why the reason Ethnos is great, and so is Archeos Society, and 8 is a great score.
It is true.
Archeos Society, I think I would probably have at an 8.5 if not for some of the usability issues.
Okay.
So it's just slightly above Ethnos for me, but I'm going to keep it at that same score at the 8 because those usability things are a bit frustrating. They really are, and it's so easily avoided, right? It's not even the score track. Sure, that's an annoyance, but it's not. You can get over that. The colors are a really big issue for me.
Right.
There were multiple times where I'm like, okay, I thought I was playing towards this track, and I was not. And I'm like, oh, geez, okay. That's enough to knock it down a half a point for me. But an 8, solid game. I'd recommend either. I'd play either anytime.
Interesting. So you prefer this edges out?
Slightly.
Okay.
So while I prefer the original Ethnos, my score for Archeos Society is actually a 9 because I just love this system. I have a lot of complaints. I agree with your assessment of there's a little bit of usability issue with the coloring. There's a little bit as well with the card powers, where a librarian next to a botanist, next to an archaeologist, they don't look that distinct as, and I'm going to make this comparison now, a wizard versus a bird folk versus a mermaid.
That's a good point.
It's easier across the table to say that one. The colors and what the factions are. The fact that the cards in the original Ethnos have written out in just text, draw X number of cards. Right? When you play a set of 4 cards, draw 4 cards. This is why this matters to me. The symbology is fine. I think the symbology sometimes is weak for that little reminder of what each faction does. The back of the rulebook spells them all out, but there's not player aids.
Yeah.
Right? I give Ethnos a 9.5. It might even be a 10. I think it's a 10 at this point for me. So Archeos Society being a 9 is a step down because of those usability issues. The first time I taught Ethnos to someone, a friend of mine, and I share this respectfully, we played it through a game of it, and he had no questions, which is cool, right? The game is really well made, and he says, Chris, this is the first time I've ever had the opportunity to play a game where I didn't have questions about how things worked because everything's just spelled out on the cards. He's like, I don't always process things auditorily, all the rules and stuff just well. So this game is so well made. Yeah, Ethnos is kind of ugly. Archeos Society is kind of gorgeous, but then those sacrifices of the little bit of usability bring it down a notch for me, the lack of excitement of the area majority. However, all that being said, it's a 9, because it's a phenomenal game.
It is.
If this is, like Wendy's point, if this is the first introduction you have to this game and you've never played Ethnos, and all those comparisons don't make sense, still go get this game, because it's tremendously fun, plays up to 6 players very quickly, plays 2 players very well, right? Which is, that's a big range of player count that I think works phenomenally. So I really still love this game. I'm giving it a 9. So there you go. That's our thoughts on Archeos Society. Thanks for coming out to this review. Hope that was useful to you, whether you've played the original or not. But until next time, my name is Chris Yee.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
I'm Joey Evans.
And I'm Wendy Yee.
Have fun exploring and making sets of mercenaries.
Watch out for the monkeys.
They're everywhere.